Imagine unrolling a sea chart from the 1700s, the kind drawn by hand, stained with salt and rum, edges burned where candlelight got too close. Now trace your finger from the southern tip of Florida, down through the Bahamas, across to Puerto Rico, and then up through the open Atlantic back to Bermuda. That triangle you just drew? Sailors called it many things: the graveyard of the Atlantic, the Sea of Doom, the limbo of the lost. But the name that stuck, the one that still makes seasoned mariners uncomfortable when they hear it, is the Devil's Triangle. Today, most people know it as the Bermuda Triangle. They think of missing planes and vanishing cargo ships. They think of television specials and spooky documentaries about Flight 19 or the USS Cyclops. But long before modern vessels disappeared into these waters, there was another era of vanishing. An era when wooden ships with black flags sailed into this same stretch of ocean and were never heard from again. No wreckage, no survivors, no explanation. The golden age of piracy sent thousands of ships through the Devil's Triangle between 1650 and 1730. Hundreds of those ships simply vanished, not captured, not sunk in battle, not wrecked on charted reefs. They sailed into the triangle and ceased to exist, as if the ocean swallowed them whole. This is the story of those ships, those crews, and the stretch of sea that consumed them. The map nobody wanted to trust. To understand why so many pirate ships disappeared in this region, you first need to understand what the Devil's Triangle actually is from a geographic standpoint, because the ocean inside this triangle is not like other oceans. It never has been. The triangle covers roughly 500,000 square miles of open water between Miami, Bermuda, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. That is an area larger than the state of Texas, sitting right in the middle of some of the busiest shipping lanes the world has ever known. Beneath the surface, the seafloor drops into some of the deepest trenches in the Atlantic. The Puerto Rico Trench plunges to over 27,000 feet. That is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Ships that sink in these waters don't rest on a shallow bottom where divers can reach them. They fall into an abyss so deep that sunlight has never touched it. They are gone, permanently. And then there is the Gulf Stream. This is a massive underwater river of warm water that flows through the triangle at speeds of up to 5 miles per hour. That might not sound like much until you realize that a wooden sailing ship in the 1700s could barely make 6 or 7 miles per hour under full sail on a good day. The Gulf Stream could push a ship dozens of miles off course in a single night. If a captain fell asleep, or a storm knocked out his compass, or a fog rolled in thick enough to blind the helmsman, the current would carry that vessel into open ocean with no landmarks and no way to recalibrate position. For pirates, this was catastrophic. Unlike merchant vessels and naval ships, pirate crews rarely had trained navigators. They sailed by dead reckoning, which meant estimating your position based on your last known location, your speed, and your direction of travel. Dead reckoning works fine in calm, predictable waters. In the Devil's Triangle, where currents shift without warning and weather systems form in minutes, dead reckoning was a death sentence. And the weather inside this triangle is unlike anything else in the Atlantic. The Devil's Triangle sits directly in the path of Caribbean hurricane season. Between June and November, massive storm systems barrel through these waters with winds exceeding 150 miles per hour. In the 1700s, there were no weather satellites, no radio warnings, no storm tracking systems. A pirate ship could be sailing under clear blue skies, and within 2 hours be caught inside a Category 4 hurricane with absolutely no warning. But hurricanes were the obvious danger. The less obvious ones killed more sailors. Waterspouts, for instance. These are essentially tornadoes over water, and they are terrifyingly common in the triangle. A waterspout can appear out of a clear sky, touching down on the ocean surface with winds of 100 miles per hour. For a wooden ship with canvas sails and no engine, a waterspout was a death sentence. It would snap the masts, shred the sails, and in some cases, lift the entire bow of a ship out of the water before slamming it back down. Rogue waves were another killer. Modern oceanography has confirmed that the convergence of currents and storm systems in the triangle creates unusually large waves, sometimes reaching 80 to 100 feet in height. These walls of water appear without any buildup, no gradually increasing swells, no darkening horizon. Before we go any further, I need to stop for a second, because what I've been showing you in these videos only scratches the surface. And I realized at some point that the full picture, the actual pirate code, word for word, the real punishment records, the exact treasure division shares, the ports that secretly funded them, it doesn't fit in a video. I put it all into one document, the Black Flag Codex. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now, let's keep going. One moment, the sea is manageable. The next moment, a 10-story wave is crashing down on the deck. A pirate sloop from the 1700s was typically 50 to 70 feet long. A rogue wave twice that height would not just capsize it, it would disintegrate it. And that is why no wreckage was ever found, because there was nothing left to find. The Golden Age and the Triangle's appetite. The period between roughly 1650 and 1730 is known as the Golden Age of piracy. This was when thousands of pirates operated across the Caribbean, the Atlantic coast of the Americas, and the waters around West Africa. Names like Blackbeard, Henry Morgan, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, and Charles Vane terrorized merchant shipping and fought running battles with the navies of England, Spain, and France. What most people don't realize is how central the Devil's Triangle was to pirate operations. The triangle contained the primary shipping lanes connecting the Caribbean colonies to Europe. Every Spanish treasure galleon loaded with gold and silver from South America sailed through these waters. Every British merchant ship carrying tobacco, sugar, and rum passed through the triangle. Every French trading vessel running between Martinique and Le Havre crossed this stretch of ocean. For pirates, the triangle was the ideal hunting ground. It was where the prey gathered. Nassau, in the Bahamas, sat right on the western edge of the triangle. Between 1706 and 1718, Nassau was the pirate capital of the world. Thousands of pirates called it home. They sailed out of Nassau Harbor, hunted ships in the triangle, and returned with their prizes. Port Royal, Jamaica, served a similar function on the triangle's southern boundary before an earthquake destroyed it in 1692. Tortuga, off the coast of Hispaniola, was another pirate haven within striking distance of the triangle's major shipping lanes. So every day during the Golden Age, dozens of pirate vessels were operating inside the Devil's Triangle. They were chasing merchant ships through the same currents and storm systems that made this water so deadly. And many of them never came back. The historical record from this period is frustratingly incomplete. Colonial governors, naval commanders, and merchant companies kept logs of ships that arrived and ships that were lost. But pirates didn't file departure manifests. They didn't check in with harbor authorities. When a pirate ship sailed out of Nassau and never returned, no one filed a report. The ship and its crew simply stopped existing. Historians estimate that during the Golden Age, at least 300 to 400 ships disappeared in the Devil's Triangle without any confirmed cause. Some were undoubtedly pirate vessels. Some were merchant ships whose disappearance was blamed on pirates when the sea itself was the killer. The line between pirate attack and oceanic catastrophe was impossible to draw. The ships that vanished without a trace. There are specific disappearances from the pirate era that still puzzle historians and maritime researchers today. One of the most famous involves a fleet of Spanish treasure ships in 1715. The 1715 treasure fleet consisted of 11 ships sailing from Havana to Spain, carrying what modern estimates put at 400 million worth of gold, silver, and precious stones. The fleet sailed directly through the Devil's Triangle. On July 31, 1715, a hurricane slammed into the fleet off the coast of Florida. 7 ships were destroyed. Over 1,000 sailors drowned. But here is the part that never gets enough attention. 4 ships from that fleet simply disappeared. They were separated from the main group during the storm and were never seen again. No wreckage, no bodies, no cargo washed ashore. For over 300 years, treasure hunters have searched for those 4 missing ships. They have found pieces of the 7 that wrecked near shore, coins, cannons, anchors, hull fragments. But the 4 that vanished in the open triangle? Nothing, not a single plank. The depth of the Puerto Rico Trench and the violence of the Gulf Stream likely explain this. Ships that sank in deep water were carried by currents, scattered across the ocean floor, and buried under centuries of sediment. They are, for all practical purposes, erased. Then there is the case of the pirate ship Whydah. The Whydah was originally a slave ship captured by the pirate Samuel Bellamy in 1717. Bellamy loaded it with treasure from over 50 captured vessels and sailed it through the Triangle toward Cape Cod. The ship wrecked in a storm off Massachusetts, and its remains were discovered in 1984. But what makes the Whydah relevant to this story is what Bellamy's crew reported before the wreck. Multiple survivors testified that during their passage through the Triangle, they encountered weather unlike anything they had ever seen. Sudden fog banks that appeared out of nowhere, compass needles that spun wildly, calm seas that turned violent within minutes. One crew member described the water itself as wrong, claiming the color changed from blue to green to black in the space of an afternoon. These reports align almost exactly with modern accounts of anomalous conditions in the Bermuda Triangle. Magnetic anomalies that interfere with navigation, sudden methane gas releases from the seafloor that can change water density and cause ships to lose buoyancy, microbursts, sudden downward blasts of air from storm clouds that can flatten a ship's sails and push the vessel underwater in seconds. Bellamy and his crew survived their passage through the Triangle. Hundreds of other pirate crews did not. Consider the disappearance of pirate Captain Olivier Levasseur's fleet in the early 1720s. Levasseur, known as La Bouse or the Buzzard, operated across the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. He reportedly assembled a small fleet of 4 ships to transport his accumulated treasure to a hidden location. 2 of those ships sailed through the Devil's Triangle and vanished completely. Levasseur himself survived on one of the other ships, but he never recovered the lost vessels or the treasure they carried. When Levasseur was captured and hanged in 1730, his last words reportedly included a reference to his hidden treasure. "Find my treasure, the one who may understand it." That cryptic message launched centuries of treasure hunting, but the 2 ships that disappeared in the Triangle have never been found. Whatever they carried is sitting at the bottom of an oceanic trench, unreachable and unknown. The compass problem. One detail that appears repeatedly in accounts from pirate crews who sailed through the Devil's Triangle is compass malfunction. This is not a myth. It is a documented phenomenon. The Devil's Triangle is one of only 2 places on Earth where a magnetic compass points toward true north instead of magnetic north. The other is the Devil's Sea, off the coast of Japan. In every other location on the planet, there is a variance between true north and magnetic north called declination. Navigators learn to compensate for this variance. It is one of the first things a sailor is taught. But in the Devil's Triangle, that compensation is unnecessary, and any sailor who does not know this will navigate incorrectly. If a pirate captain was accustomed to adjusting his course for magnetic declination and he sailed into an area where declination was 0, his adjustments would push him off course without him realizing it. In the 1700s, this was not understood. Compass behavior in the Triangle was attributed to supernatural forces, cursed waters, or divine punishment. Pirates were a superstitious lot to begin with. When their compass stopped behaving the way it should, many captains panicked. And panic at sea kills faster than any storm. There are accounts from the era of pirate ships sailing in circles for days, their captains convinced they were heading west when they were actually heading south. The Gulf Stream would carry them further and further from their intended course, while their faulty navigation told them they were right on track. Stop for a second. What you just heard about the pirate code is the part that rewrites everything you thought you knew. But it only lands when you see the actual shares, the exact fractions written into the Articles of Agreement, the punishments, the port records, the names of the men who funded them from government offices. It's all in the Black Flag Codex, linked in the description. 5 seconds, grab it now, because what comes next builds directly on it. Link is below. QR code is on your screen. By the time they realized the error, if they ever did, they were deep in open ocean with no food, no fresh water, and no idea where they were. This is how ships vanish. Not in a single dramatic moment, but in a slow, creeping realization that you are lost in the middle of the largest ocean on Earth with no way to find your way back. The Sargasso Sea Trap. Inside the Devil's Triangle sits another danger that specifically targeted sailing vessels: the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea is unlike any other body of water on the planet. It is the only sea in the world that has no land boundaries. Instead, it is defined by ocean currents. The Gulf Stream to the west, the North Atlantic Current to the north, the Canary Current to the east, and the North Atlantic Equatorial Current to the south. These four currents create a slow-moving gyre, a circular rotation of water that traps anything floating on its surface. And floating on the surface of the Sargasso Sea is a thick mat of sargassum seaweed, millions of tons of it stretching across an area the size of the continental United States. For a modern ship with an engine, the Sargasso Sea is a minor inconvenience. For a wooden sailing ship in the 1700s, it was a nightmare. The sargassum could become so thick that it physically prevented a ship from moving. The seaweed would wrap around the hull, foul the rudder, and tangle in any rigging that hung below the waterline. A ship trapped in thick sargassum could sit motionless for days, even weeks, waiting for a wind strong enough to push through the weed. And the winds inside the Sargasso Sea are famously unreliable. The gyre creates an area of high atmospheric pressure, which means light, inconsistent winds. Sailors from every era have reported being becalmed in the Sargasso for agonizing stretches of time. No wind, no current, no movement. For pirate ships, being becalmed in the Sargasso was a death sentence in slow motion. Pirates carried limited supplies. Unlike naval vessels and well-funded merchant ships, pirate crews could not stock enough food and water for extended voyages. They relied on frequent stops at island ports and captured provisions from raided ships. A pirate ship trapped in the Sargasso Sea with a crew of 80 to 150 men would exhaust its fresh water within 2 weeks. Food would last perhaps a month if rationed. After that, the crew would start dying. Dehydration first, then starvation, then disease, as weakened bodies succumbed to infections. The Sargasso Sea is littered with the remains of ships from every era. In the 1800s and early 1900s, vessels reported seeing ghost ships drifting in the Sargassum, their decks empty, their sails hanging limp, their crews long dead. How many of those ghost ships were once pirate vessels from the Golden Age? There is no way to know. But the Sargasso sat directly in the path of pirates sailing from the Caribbean toward the African coast, or the Azores, and any pirate captain who drifted into the Sargasso without realizing it was likely doomed. The supernatural reputation. It would be dishonest to tell this story without addressing the folklore, because for the pirates who sailed these waters, the Devil's Triangle was not just a dangerous stretch of ocean. It was something worse. It was cursed. Pirate crews were deeply superstitious. They believed in sea monsters, ghost ships, and divine retribution for their crimes. They interpreted every unusual event, a strange cloud formation, a sudden calm, a compass malfunction, as a sign from God or the devil. The Devil's Triangle fed these superstitions relentlessly. Sailors reported seeing lights under the water, glowing blue and green. Modern science attributes this to bioluminescence, the natural glow produced by millions of tiny marine organisms. But to a pirate crew in 1710, those underwater lights were the lanterns of drowned men, or worse, the eyes of something lurking beneath the hull. There were reports of white water, stretches of ocean where the surface turned a milky, opaque white. This is now understood to be caused by the churning of calcium carbonate sediments from the shallow Bahamas banks. But to pirates, white water was a sign that the sea floor was rising beneath them, that the ocean was about to swallow them the way it had swallowed so many before. And then there was the fog. The Devil's Triangle produces fog events that are unlike fog anywhere else in the Atlantic. Warm, moist air from the Gulf Stream collides with cooler air masses from the north, creating dense fog banks that can appear in minutes and persist for days. Inside these fog banks, visibility drops to zero. Sound behaves strangely, bouncing off the water and the fog itself, making it impossible to determine the direction of other ships, waves, or land. Pirate crews caught in triangle fog reported hearing voices, singing, and screaming from inside the mist. They reported seeing the outlines of ships that were not there. They reported the sensation of being watched by something enormous and invisible. Modern psychology would identify these experiences as the effects of extreme stress, sleep deprivation, and sensory deprivation. When the brain is deprived of visual input and subjected to monotonous sound, like waves against a hull in dense fog, it begins to generate its own stimuli: hallucinations, auditory illusions, paranoia. But for the pirates living through it, the experience was absolutely real, and the terror it produced led to catastrophic decision-making. Crews mutinied, captains changed course into worse danger, helmsmen abandoned the wheel. Ships that might have survived the natural hazards of the triangle were destroyed instead by the psychological collapse of their crews. The Devil's Triangle did not need to be supernatural to kill. It just needed to make men believe it was. The ones who talked about it. Not every pirate ship that entered the triangle was lost. Many sailed through successfully, sometimes dozens of times. But the ones who survived often came out of the experience changed. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, was one of the most feared pirates in history. He operated extensively in the waters around the Bahamas and the Carolinas, which placed him squarely within the Devil's Triangle. Blackbeard was known for his theatrical intimidation tactics. He wove slow-burning fuses into his beard so that smoke wreathed his face during battle, making him look like a demon emerging from hell. But Blackbeard himself reportedly feared the triangle's deeper waters. Multiple accounts from his crew suggest that Teach avoided sailing through the open center of the triangle whenever possible. He preferred to hug the coastline, staying within sight of land, rather than cutting across the open water between the Bahamas and Bermuda. When forced into open water by naval pursuit, he was described as agitated and volatile, more dangerous to his own crew than usual. If a man who literally set his own face on fire to intimidate enemies was afraid of the open triangle, that tells you something about the reputation these waters held among sailors. Benjamin Hornigold, the pirate captain who founded the Flying Gang in Nassau and mentored both Blackbeard and the notorious Sam Bellamy, was another veteran of the Triangle. Hornigold operated out of Nassau for years, sailing repeatedly through Triangle waters. He survived, but many of the ships he sent out on raiding missions did not. Hornigold reportedly lost at least 3 ships under his command to unexplained disappearances in the Triangle, including one vessel that set sail with a full crew and was found weeks later, drifting and empty, with food still on the table and no sign of struggle. That last detail is one of the most chilling patterns in Triangle disappearances. Ships found intact, abandoned, with no evidence of what happened to the crew. The Mary Celeste, found adrift in 1872 near the Azores, is the most famous case, but there are earlier accounts from the pirate era describing the same phenomenon. Ships in perfect condition, sails set, cargo secure, meals half-eaten, and not a single living soul aboard. What causes an entire crew to abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel in the middle of the ocean? One theory involves methane hydrate eruptions. The seafloor beneath the Devil's Triangle contains massive deposits of methane gas trapped in ice-like crystal structures called hydrates. If the seafloor shifts, these hydrates can release enormous quantities of methane in sudden eruptions. The gas rises through the water in a massive column of bubbles. Any ship sitting above this eruption would lose buoyancy instantly as the water beneath it became a froth of gas and liquid. The ship would plunge downward as if the sea floor had opened beneath it. But methane eruptions also release toxic gas into the air above the water. A crew breathing concentrated methane would experience confusion, hallucination, panic, and loss of consciousness within minutes. This could explain the abandoned ships. Crews hit by a methane release might have been so disoriented and terrified that they abandoned ship in blind panic, launching themselves into the sea on lifeboats or simply jumping overboard, convinced the ship was sinking when it was not. The ship would remain intact, the crew would be gone, and the ocean would tell no tales. The Triangle's final toll. By the time the golden age of piracy ended in the 1730s, the Devil's Triangle had claimed an unknowable number of ships and lives. Historians can document perhaps 300 to 400 disappearances of named vessels during this period. But the actual number is certainly higher. Many pirate ships were never formally named. Many were captured merchant vessels whose new pirate identity was never recorded. Many were small sloops and schooners with crews of 20 or 30, too small and insignificant to appear in colonial records. When these ships vanished, nobody wrote it down. The men who crewed them had no families who would file inquiries. They were outlaws who had already been erased from legitimate society. Their deaths in the Triangle simply completed an erasure that had already begun. The total number of lives lost to the Devil's Triangle during the Golden Age is estimated at somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000. Pirate crews, merchant sailors, naval personnel, enslaved people being transported through the Triangle on slave ships, passengers on colonial vessels, all of them victims of the same stretch of ocean. And the Triangle did not discriminate. It took Spanish treasure galleons and tiny pirate sloops. It took British warships and French trading vessels. It took ships with experienced captains and ships with drunken ones. The only consistent factor was the water itself. Today, the Devil's Triangle still claims ships and aircraft. The U.S. Coast Guard reports that more ships and planes are lost in this region than in any comparable area of the Atlantic. Modern technology, GPS navigation, satellite weather, radar, sonar has reduced the losses dramatically. But it has not eliminated them. Every year, ships still disappear in the Triangle. Some are found eventually, wrecked on reefs or sunk in accessible waters. Others are never found. They join the pirate ships and treasure galleons and slave vessels and warships that litter the ocean floor beneath the Triangle, an underwater graveyard stretching across 500,000 square miles. What the sea keeps. There is one final detail that makes the Devil's Triangle's history with pirate ships so haunting, and it has nothing to do with the supernatural. The treasure. During the Golden Age, pirate ships operating in the Triangle collectively carried wealth that would be worth billions of dollars today. Spanish silver and gold from the mines of Peru and Mexico. Precious stones from Colombian emerald deposits. Chinese silk and porcelain traded through Manila and across the Pacific. African gold and ivory. Sugar, rum, tobacco, and spices worth fortunes in European markets. When these ships vanished in the Triangle, their treasure vanished with them. It is sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic right now. Some of it in depth so extreme that current technology cannot reach it. Some of it buried under centuries of sediment. Some of it scattered across miles of ocean floor by the same currents that doomed the ships carrying it. The 1715 treasure fleet alone lost an estimated $400 million in gold and silver. Levasseur's missing ships may have carried millions more. The accumulated treasure of hundreds of vanished pirate ships represents one of the largest concentrations of lost wealth on the planet. And it is all inside the Devil's Triangle, unreachable, unrecoverable, guarded by the same forces that put it there. The Sargasso Sea still drifts above it, a slow-moving carpet of ancient seaweed. The Gulf Stream still flows through it, carrying warm water north at a relentless pace. Hurricanes still form above it every summer, pounding the surface with winds and waves that would have been unimaginable to the pirate crews who died there. The ocean in the Devil's Triangle looks exactly the same today as it did in 1715. The same blue water, the same deceptive calm, the same sudden violence. The only difference is that now we have names for the forces that killed those sailors. We call them rogue waves, methane eruptions, magnetic anomalies, waterspouts, and microbursts. We have charts and satellites and weather stations and GPS coordinates. But the pirates who sailed into the Triangle and never came back? They had one name for all of it. They called it the Devil. And they were not entirely wrong.